think this is probably too low down.
Today's topic is going to be why runday. So I've been recording since the beginning of this year. Well, since the beginning of this year, I've been running on average 4 miles as a way to apply scientific principles to my everyday life. And the goal is to use that as a discipline to explain science and philosophy. My tradition is built on principles of science and philosophy. I don't want to say that it is built upon principles of science and philosophy in opposition to religion, but growing up, I understood at a very young age that religion wasn't applicable to dealing with the adversities of life, especially as an African American male living in American society. I was born in '82, and I've been alive for 40 years. So, at a very young age, I was trying to figure out, when I went through the age of enlightenment, you go from being an adolescent to an adult, there's a condition that everyone experiences where we try to understand our place in the world, understand our place in society, understand our place in our families and our friends, and the finiteness, and reconcile the finiteness of our existence. When I was doing that, I was given religion. I was predominantly given Christianity, which is what I was raised in. Well, technically I wasn't raised Christian. I lived half my life with my mother and half my life with my father. So I was born into a Christian home with my mother, and I lived with her until I was about 6. Then I moved to stay with my father until I was about 16, and then I moved back with my mother around, a little bit after turning 16 to 19. And then after turning 19, I pretty much went out. So I was predominantly raised in that very Christian society as an American, and I had a slight influence of Islam, a little bit of the influence of Jehovah's. That's about it. That's pretty much the extent of my religious understanding. Everything that I know about religion was secondhand. I never actively went to church. I never actively read the Bible or studied the Bible to try to find answers to truths in the universe, because I found that the best explanation for those things were science. So I grew up on Deacon's Road, Bill Nye the Science Guy, and History Channel documentaries. Even before History Channel documentaries, I had Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street and all those other shows that taught you legitimate values for being a human being. As an African American, I never saw myself as black. That's something that every child that is of dark complexion or has African American parents is conditioned to understand and believe. It's something that is conditioned into us. No one wants to be a black person in the world. Nobody wants to be an oppressed, ostracized, economized, usurped person. And that's conversation that's coming as uncovered for this week. The adversities of this world require physical endurance, requires stamina and tenacity, requires a level of progression to overcome the bullshit that you deal with every day, with the enlightenment that comes with being a Homo sapien, a sentient sapient being, to say that even though I could destroy this thing that's in my way, I'm going to use a higher level of awareness to solve this problem. Right? That's what makes us. That's kind of what makes us human. Humans are defined by our capacity to make tools to solve problems. Right? So animals rely wholeheartedly on their bodies to overcome the adversities of the physical world and natural world. Humanity, we have evolved beyond the limitations of this form, which is the point of runday, right? Because this form is what I interact with through this world, and I am in good health and I am in good shape. What I hope to achieve with runday is a quantifiable value for morality for the African American. Everything in this world is trying to convince us that the African American is the low class and the bottom of society, that we are somehow inherently inferior to everyone else, and that is where our adversity comes from. It comes from our inherent inferiority to the rest of the world. Everyone accepts that they have an inherent inferiority to Europeans, and we condition ourselves, we humble ourselves, we consent to this idea that has been built into the institution of America. I don't know about the rest of the world, but specifically for this nation, I can say that it's a true value. And my just saying it's designed specifically to address that condition. There is nothing inherently wrong with you until you prove it empirically. The vast majority, I was watching a video on, this is a rant, I'll get back to this empirical science, but it's important because it speaks to the idea of morality. There is a video where Trevor Noah, the South African comedian that took over the Daily Show after Amerson. On the video, he's talking to someone and he says that he's been diagnosed with ADHD. And he's perfectly okay with the diagnosis and prognosis. And that's fine. If you want to accept the condition for yourself, you're perfectly okay to do so. The problem that I have with the conversation that Trevor Noah had was when he stated plainly that I think most comedians suffer from ADHD and that they're awarded for having this mental disorder, right? So you have to understand the condition, the position of Mike Dussin, right? Mike Dussin states that African Americans are being conditioned to believe that we are somehow inherently inferior to the rest of the world. That there is some inherent deficiency that causes us not to be able to function at the functional level of everyone else's society. Right? Trevor Noah is South African. He's a South African, just like Elon Musk. So you have this South African with dark skin on a platform stating plainly that his success at becoming a member of the TV show and rising up to the level of fame that he has achieved is a direct result of some mental disorder that has given him an edge in society. Right? Because if the goal in life is to be the peak of what you're supposed to be, why is it that the African American has to always peak through some mental illness? Right? Every mental illness is given to us like, oh, you have ADHD, that makes you better. Oh, you have autism, that makes you better. They want to give you these labels of deficiency and then tell you that this deficiency is what makes you greater. Right? When I was working at Arby's, I hired this woman to work with me as an assistant store manager. I hired her and brought her in to teach her everything, and she whined and complained and argued with me about everything. I don't understand why you're doing this. I don't understand why you do that. It doesn't make any sense for you to do this right now because we got time to do it later. Why do you know? If you don't understand, shut the fuck up and listen to what I'm saying. The reason why I know the things that I know is because when someone was communicating to me what I needed to understand, I closed my mouth and I listened to that educator in that position to educate me, and I applied what they were trying to teach me to the condition of what they were saying. And this is an important understanding, right? Because if someone's trying to teach you to do something that they're doing, and you emulate them, and you can't be successful, there's two reasons why. They're not teaching you how they do the thing that they're doing, or deceiving you, or you are not consciously understanding what is being given to you in a way that is applicable to you, the way that someone else does something, the way that you have to do it are not compatible. And sometimes in that exchange, there's chaos. And the best way to reduce that chaos is by listening to what someone else has to tell you. The whole reason why I brought her up is because she asked me one day when she was watching me do my job, right? I was doing my job. I got promoted. I started there with no experience. I worked in Arby's for 21 days, I made shift manager. I went another 3 months in that company and then they made me the assistant store manager. After they made me the assistant store manager, within a week, I interviewed her and hired her. And I hired her, African American woman, I hired her with the understanding that these are the issues and conditions that I've been dealing with in my life, and I want to be better as a manager. So I hired her. I brought her in. She had all the signs of, don't hire this woman. But I was like, I'm not going to be biased. I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to be prejudiced. I'm going to give her a shot. I'm going to give her a chance. The GM and supervisor all felt the same way about this woman. We hired her. You know what she did? She brought chaos into a border store. So when she was telling me that she didn't understand why I was doing the things that I was doing, she asked me one day, Paul, do you think you're ADHD? Do you think you got OCD? And I'm looking at her like, why? Because I do my job correctly? Why do I have to have a mental disorder? I'm thinking in my head like, why does my capacity to be a functional human being have to be reduced down to a mental disorder? Why do I have to have OCD to clean? You have to have OCD to clean. You have to have OCD to organize and organize and communicate some condition and growth, like cleanliness and orderliness is supposed to be a mental disorder. Like, why does that happen? Since I'm ranting anyway, when I was 16, I got a summer youth job. And in that summer youth job, I was taken to Wayne County Community College. And I was put in an office setting with these older Caucasian women, like probably in their 50s or 60s. So they brought in the young Detroiter, and we work in a college setting dealing with high-level files with organization systems. Why would you let a child, rather you believe that this child is inferior because of their skin complexion or not? Why would you allow a child to do any kind of work in your environment, right? So she brought me in. Oh, he's here for the summer program. Okay, I know now that I'm an adult, I know she's like, okay, this kid's here to waste my time. My job's already stressful enough. Now I got to entertain him. So she did what any normal person would do. She took me over, Caucasian woman older. She took me over to the closet. She said, I have this closet. Can you organize this for me? She didn't know nothing about me. We never met. That was our first exchange. We never acknowledged anything about each other. None of that stuff. She took me over there. Organize this closet. Okay. Now, I had a passion for Legos as a child. Every day, I would organize my Legos to build, destroy my buildings, destroy my creations because I was a kid playing, and then reorganize my Legos and rebuild. I would sort them by shape, color, and everything every single day. So when she gave me this closet to organize, I was like, oh, this is kind of like Legos. So I spent probably 8 hours, right? Well, maybe not 8 because I was a kid, maybe 4 hours. 2 to 4 hours I spent organizing that closet. I went home. The next day I came to work. The next following whatever work type it was, because I'm sure it wasn't every day. But when I came back the next day, that same woman, as soon as she saw me, she lit up. Like her eyes got big. She was so excited to see me. She was happy that I was there. She walked over to me. She's like, Paul, I've only known this woman once. I'm not making this up. That's not what we do on this channel. She came over to me. She grabbed my hand. And she was like, so she grabbed me. She with haste took me to this closet and showed me the organization that I did. She said, what do you see? I'm high school kid. This is like 16 or 17. She said, she said, you know what this is? I said, yeah, it's an organized closet. So she said, and here's the most fundamental point about this little statement that she made. She said, this is attention to detail. Right? She let me know that the skill set that I displayed was was attention to detail. And I said, okay, well, I'm a 6-year-old kid. What does that mean to a child? What I mean to a child? But they're very clean without any further inference. There's nothing wrong. You know what the next time I read that was? When I was 34 and I listened to the argument. The most important thing that they want to social happen around me was attention. And I had already made it to age 16 before I ever even started life. I had already displayed it. Because as a child, I played with Legos and I organized them by color and by shape and by size. And I sat there and I took the time to do that every day. Because how do humans learn? Through playing. Playing is the application of the fundamentals of children learning and growing as people. And the main reason why there are so many deficiencies in this world is because children have not allowed to play and have to be set by the school. We don't build problem solving skills. We don't have the capacity to understand. And most importantly, we have eliminated the ability for people to fail and overcome failure. You have to fail and overcome failure. Which is the reason why there's a run day. Because every day I go out there and I run and I fail at achieving the objectives that I want to achieve, which is running as fast as I want to run. No matter how fast I'm running, I always want to run faster. No matter how good I'm doing, I always want to do better. And the only thing I can do to balance those two is make sure that I'm doing it every 3 days. If I do it every 3 days, I'm content with the fact that I'm not doing it as fast as I need to. If I don't do it every 2 days, or if I don't miss that time frame in the morning, then I feel that sense of you're not achieving your objective. You set a goal, you're not achieving it. You have to train to get this 40K out of the way, or to get this 100K out of the way, and to be able to be consistent in long-term problem solving and long-term adversity. How are you going to be successful? Anything in your life, if you can't even run every 3 days, that's the whole point of the run day. The goal of one day is actually take some data that I created as an actual scientist and use that data to apply it to actual in an applicable way to explain scientific principles like what I'm going to do right now. Okay, now that the rant is done, let me explain why I've been running 4 miles every 2 days. The end of the year, and when I got to Florida, why it changed to 3 miles every 3 days. In physics, there is a thing called power. There's an influence. An influence generates a force. And what this basically means is that within reason, there is no such thing as a prime mover. Within reason. There has to be a prime mover because the prime mover explains motion in the essence of itself. There's some condition by which things have motion, and there's some condition by which things that have motion are in motion and can translate that motion. Motion is a translation to space, either rectilinear, straight lines, or curvilinear, which is around curved paths, because space and time are curved. But we won't go into that because this is supposed to be very simple. It's going to be long-winded, but it's supposed to be very simple. So, motion is the direct result of some influence. There is no motion without influence. So a force requires some influence. So the influence gives rise to a force. The force gives rise to the first required element of work. So you generate some force over some distance on any object, create work. That's how you define work. Force over distance. I weigh about 192 pounds. So for me to move any distance, it required 192 pounds of influence or force to get me to move whatever that distance was. So every time I move, I'm exerting a force of 192 pounds over some distance through some time. Well, over some distance, that's the force. The time it takes me to do that force over that distance is mechanical work. The amount of work done to time, right, if I slow it down, that's power. This is 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 power. The amount of force is still the same amount of force, 192 pounds over some distance is work. And that same amount of work over some time is power. So when I'm running, right? I'm tired, I'm doing some amount of work, generating some amount of power. When I'm super excited and have a lot of energy, it's the same amount of work, but it's a different amount of power. And those two add together to give me my average work over time, well, my average power over time. That's the whole point of runday. And doing this, right, doing this work does what? What does this do to my body? It causes stress. The stress that is caused by simply running 3 miles every 3 days requires my body, right, to have to fix damage done by the way it's designed, right? So how does the body grow in strength? What has evolved in the nature of animals on the planet that allows us to become stronger? How do you shape and forge your body into, as people like to say, a temple? What makes you fit or healthy or strong in relation to someone that is unfit or unhealthy? They're not quite as strong. Muscles generate through their design. Whenever you move your muscle, there is an electrical signal that travels from your brain through your neural network into your muscles. It tells them to contract only, right? Muscles can only contract. This is the reason why people die, they get stiff, because they lose the ability to contract. So, the human body, the brain tells the body, the muscles to contract, right? So when I close my hand, there are muscles that close my hand. They contract and my hand closes. There's another set of muscles that will contract and my hand will open, and the first set of muscles relax. So some muscles relax, others contract. The ones that are contracted right now will relax, and the other muscles will contract. And that is how every muscle in your body works. Expansion and contraction. It's all 100% contraction. So for you to close your hand, you have to engage a set of muscles, and for you to open your hand, those muscles that you close must also be engaged by those other muscles. So there's always this unnecessary amount of stress that's being put on your body. The process by which muscles generate power is, the byproduct of that is lactic acid. Lactic acid is acidic, thus acid. What lactic acid does is it damages the muscle fibers. Yes, lactic acid damages muscle fibers when they are being used. As muscle fibers are destroyed by lactic acid, the body has to move all of that toxin and chaos and disorder from the muscles through the bloodstream, and the repairing of the muscles is always done stronger than it was previously. So when lactic acid breaks your muscles down, it will repair them using stronger fibers and stronger connective tissue. And it will also make them larger, so your muscles will grow bigger and larger. The problem is that as your muscles get bigger, the amount of force required to contract them and expand them also increases. So you get stronger, but you also get slower. You get more power, but that power comes with more resistance because the distance that larger muscles travel is significantly higher than the distance that smaller muscles travel. So there is a relationship between being large and being strong, right? Why do I run? Well, let me finish explaining the process or how I believe it works empirically. When you engage any muscle, your body creates lactic acid. That lactic acid has to be moved through your body, through your bloodstream, and pushed out of your body. There are two primary ways that your body, well, three primary ways. Two primary ways that your body is said to expel waste, and that is your liver and your kidneys. Your kidneys are designed to clean toxins out of your blood, and your liver is designed to push those toxins out through your urine. They work together as filters that removes all of the toxins that you generate in your body. Urine, ironically enough, is an interesting fact. Urine is the byproduct of active biological compounds being bound into an inert state so that they can be pushed out of the body. And what I mean by that is, when you're doing anything in your body, there's all these different catalysts and chemicals in your body that are designed to create actions and reactions in your body. They are active enzymes and active chemicals and active catalysts. They're active oxidizers. These active oxidizers and stuff are interacting with parts of your body in ways that allow your body to function more. Too much of that will cause your body to overreact for a certain condition. Without being a medical scientist, let's just keep it at that. Too much of those toxins will cause your body to overreact. Let's think of it as like overdosing. So what your body has to do is it has to take those excessive compounds and bind them in a way that they will no longer be actively engaged with biological functions in the body. And it does that by creating a chemical that when binded to those other chemicals we call urine. We call it urine after it becomes inert. So our urine is an inert compound created by the body to dispel active compounds out of the body. What I think, or my understanding is that there's a third way that the body expels waste, especially when it comes to running, that we don't fully appreciate, and that is directly into the intestines and the colon. So my theory is that when I'm running, by me being a massive person, I have a lot of muscles, right? When I'm running, my body is generating all of this lactic acid, and this lactic acid is killing me. This is why you hear me crying sometimes in my videos, because the pain of this lactic acid burning through all of my systems it's physically painful. To the point where I'm pretty confident that it is actually burning my heart. And I also have the theory that the reason why the muscles of the heart are smooth is so that they actually won't be activated by lactic acid, right? Because if you're moving lactic acid through the bloodstream, and the heart is a muscle, and lactic acid is designed to destroy muscle tissue, then lactic acid will destroy the heart. And you don't want the heart to get destroyed because the heart doesn't necessarily have to get stronger. It doesn't get stronger, but not in the same way that muscles are. So the smooth muscles of the heart are designed to reduce the reaction of lactic acid that is formed in the body. Another interesting component is that the human brain, by physicality, is predominantly muscle tissue. I know that most people will probably disagree, but the brain has some of the same physical, it's predominantly neurons, but it has some of the physical connective tissue we associate with muscle fiber. So in the same way that lactic acid can damage muscles, lactic acid probably also damages the connective tissue of the brain, which is the reason why the brain is able to understand, oh, this is something that I should address. So this is not just the body's problem, this is also my problem. Let me engage certain hormones and enzymes and chemicals and adrenaline and all this other stuff so that we can address this issue and get rid of this problem, right? So that is the whole fundamental component of the theory behind that aspect of the runday. So I forgot what I was going to say about, I stopped to speak on something. Muscles, enzymes. I can't remember. It was important. I can't remember. Maybe I'll watch the video over and then drop it in the comment section. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole point of runday, apart from the philosophy component. The numbers and stuff that I'm recording, I'm using the Samsung app to record all of the data for all our runs, and basically, basically all of the data that I'm gathering, the long-term goal is to put it all in a book. And the book's not necessarily going to be an inspirational book, but it's going to be an application of discipline, an application of this is the best way to think about how to solve your own problems, to achieve whatever objectives and goals you have, and how to resist the influences that come from. That's the reason why earlier I made emphasis that influence and forces are the same, because visual influence, vocal influences, and people whining and complaining, and parents telling you what you can and can't do, and friends saying you can't do this, you can't do that, and siblings arguing and debating against you and challenging you. All of those influences will cause you to not engage in physical forces, right? Your mother constantly telling you not to do that, you need to wash the dishes. It's a very tedious thing that we have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years to encourage people to do something. But it's counterproductive energy. Like you literally, a mother constantly telling you to do something will cause you, especially if you're a male, to engage a part of who you are that will resist being told to do stuff because you have autonomy, you have free will, and you will want to reinforce that aspect of who you are to prove to yourself that you are in control of who you are. But it's counterproductive. All you have to do is just do what you're asked. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to take anything from you to just go wash the dishes or take the trash out or clean your room or finish your homework. It's just one thing that has to be done. And the average person is already in themselves engaged in a pattern of behavior that is counterproductive, and they're just going to pass that counterproductive energy onto you. Because you can't be counterproductive around a person that's being productive because it makes you feel like you're counterproductive, right? And that's what I've been experiencing all my life. My coworker, as I was explaining, I don't understand why you do this. It wasn't that she didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. She didn't want to have to do it herself. Everything that I was teaching her was stuff that she was supposed to do. So by saying, I don't understand why you're doing it, it's the same as her saying, I'm not going to do it. And it's like, this is what I have to do. And you know what I realized? I don't own Arby's. It doesn't really matter if she does her job or not. When I hired her to make my job easier. I hired her to teach her how to be a competent, functional human being in society and in the world. And it doesn't take anything away from me if she chooses not to do that. All my life I've been trying to get people to be competent and functional. And people around me don't want to be competent and functional. They like being lazy and complacent. So if she wants to be on team lazy and complacent, who am I to be upset at her? It's just going to be easier just to push her out the way and continue to do it myself. And you know what I did? Exactly that. I did exactly that. I watched her fail. I stopped communicating to her what it is she needs to do, and I would let her fail. And then when she would fail, I would let her know that you made this mistake, you made this error, you didn't do this correctly. And it wasn't coming from a place of malice or disrespect, it was coming from a place of I was trying to get you to understand why is it. Perfect example is dishes, right? Person works on the back line is pulling the dishes. So it's 6 p.m., we close at 11. At 6 p.m., I'm breaking stuff down and cleaning it. And then she's like, I don't understand why you're doing that so early. It doesn't make any sense. So 7 o'clock came around, 8 o'clock came around, 9 o'clock came around. The dishes that she was supposed to wash, they piled up on her. So around 8:30, she said, "Oh, do I have to wash all these dishes?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "There's no way I'm gonna wash all these dishes before 11 o'clock." You know what I said? Okay. I have been explaining to her for like 6 or 7 weeks now. Like, you do it early so that it can be done before. If you want something done, whatever you want done, at whatever time you want it done at, it needs to be done before that time or you fail. If you want to take the trash out at 9 o'clock, it has to be done before 9 o'clock or it didn't get done at 9 o'clock. Because if you're doing it at 9 o'clock, it's not done. It has to be done before the time for it to be done on time. And that's just a fundamental principle of life. And that's what I was trying to get her to understand. I know that there's time to achieve this goal, but that's called procrastination. It needs to be done right now or before now so that it can be done when it needs to be done. it done at 10 o'clock. I should have done it at 9:30. That doesn't make me OCD. It doesn't make me have ADHD. It makes me a mature, responsible adult. To understand that I was given a time frame to achieve an objective and a goal, and that within that time frame of achieving that objective and a goal, I have to do the things that are necessary to get that. That is the reason why I dropped out of Programming 1, because Full Sail, this is another rant, Full Sail is not teaching me how to program. Full Sail gave me a bunch of videos, links on YouTube. You know the fun thing is, all my life I've been self-educated. All my life I've been self-educated. And my capacity not to pass programming was a byproduct of not having enough time to focus on programming in a format that would allow me to keep up with the changing program. I was learning how to program. The programs were changing versions every 6 or 7 months. A program could go through 3 different version changes in 1 year. And I didn't have the money to go buy this book every 3 to 4 months to try to keep up with the programming changes, right? Everybody told me, you need to go to school and have a teacher teach you how to program. And I'm like, well, I can just teach myself. I can just learn on my own. I just need the necessary resources, the necessary materials, and the time, right? I didn't have the necessary resources, I didn't have the necessary materials, and I didn't have an instructor. I get to Full Sail, they're giving me the information to teach myself how to program with a time limit. And I'm like, I spent the last 10, 15 years of my life trying to learn how to do this on my own. Why did I come to this school to have you give me the resources and tell me to go on YouTube? Why are you telling me to go on YouTube, to look at YouTube videos, to learn how to program in C++ when I have an instructor that should be teaching me? What sense does that make? And I know what you're gonna say, well, you should just ask an instructor. I shouldn't have to ask an instructor to teach me. As a person that has been in a working environment for more than 20 years of my life, I don't bring somebody to McDonald's and say, here's the kitchen, make me a double cheeseburger. That is not how it works. And anyone that works in fast food will tell you that it's not how it works. You don't have somebody come to work and be like, get back there and make something of yourself. Go in the kitchen and make me a McChicken, right? How are they supposed to make a McChicken? When I get a filet of fish sandwich with tartar sauce on it, that's my fault. Because I put them in the kitchen and didn't give them any instructions. Is there material all over the walls that they can read to know how to make a McChicken? Yes. Do they have all the tools that they need to be able to make a sandwich? Yes. Do they have ketchup? Yes. Do they have mustard? Yes. Do they have all the guns and the sauces? Yes. Do they have the ovens already pre-set up and primed so they can cook 10 to 1 patties and 41 patties? Yes. Do they have red meat and quarter pounders in their refrigerators? Yes. Do they have nuggets and everything? Yes. How do they know where to find that stuff if you don't teach them? How do they know to change the grill from 10 to 1 to 4 to 1 if you don't teach them? How do they know that they can only put down 6 10 to 1 patties at a time if you don't teach them? How do they know that it's supposed to be ketchup, mustard, lettuce, and pickles, cheese, and then a patty on the bun if you don't teach them? How do they know that they're supposed to put the toppings on the top bread bun, on the top bun instead of the bottom bun if you don't teach them? If you just take somebody and just throw them in the environment and say, figure it out, that's not teaching. That's setting somebody up for failure. And literally that's what Full Sail did. They set me up to fail programming and then told me that it's my fault because I'm not smart enough. And guess what? I didn't come to this school because I was smart enough to teach myself how to program. I literally came to the school because I literally am not smart enough to teach myself how to program. Nobody goes to school because they are capable of doing it on their own, right? So it is literally the school's responsibility to make sure that you're able to achieve the objective that you're trying to achieve. So I changed my degree program from game design back to creative writing. You know what the instructors told me about my assignments? My assignments went from a 20 to a 98 down to a 30. You know what my instructors said? There has been evidence found that you are using large language models to program. Of course there's evidence that I've been using large language models to program. Because my instructor, who should be my large language model, is not communicating the things that I need to know so that I can program. So since you won't teach me how to program and you want me to go on the internet and find find the answers. Why, in 2024, would I waste my time watching YouTube videos when I could just prompt ChatGPT? If it was 2020, I would do it the way that you wanted me to do it. But there is large language models on the internet, so why would I not use them? Anyone that tells you not to use a large language model to do anything academic in this world is setting you up for failure. I'm just gonna say it plainly. They are setting you up for failure. The world is changing. You need to recognize real quick that there was a time when an operator, the very term operator, one of the most widely used words in the world, operator, we even use that term in mathematics. Actually, I think it was probably taken mathematics and given to the operators. What was an operator in the context of speaking? An operator was the woman that was hired by companies like Bell and other phone companies when they first started phone as an industry. The operator was the woman that was hired to run the switchboards. When you were trying to place a call, you would dial a number that you were trying to call, you would call the operator. Couldn't call directly. Call the operator. Once you call the operator would ask you who you're trying to call, and then you would tell her your number, and then she would physically switch your line to the line that you're trying to connect to. This was an actual job that probably ran for 3 or 4 years before they designed a computer to make operators obsolete. Operators were jobs that were being paid, that were being given to women that were considered highly intelligent and fully capable of this extremely demanding industry. Because that's what they've always said. They've always said that. They always use that term to try to explain reality, right? So that was an actual job that existed for a very short period of time. And then that job was replaced by the automation of computers. The operator stopped being something that was done by an actual human being and a woman. And well, specifically a woman during the time period of phone. It was something that was specifically done by a human woman. And it was replaced by the automation of computers, right? ChatGPT is going to displace every aspect of computer engineering and software engineering. 100% is going to happen. It's not going to not happen. There is no way that it's going to stop. If you do not learn how to, I watched a video where someone said that large language models is another level. The leap from oral tradition to written language is the same. The way that we went from oral traditions to written language is the leap that we're making from written language to large language models. Large language models is like the next level of literacy. And we have to become large language model literate right now before it exceeds our ability to keep going. And those of you that are using large language models right now have a better opportunity of staying ahead of the curve in society than people that are going to try to jump on the bandwagon later. Computer programmers and software engineers are going to be replaced with prompt engineers. That's just what's going to happen. It's just what's going to happen. While my teacher is telling me that I don't know how to program, I showed you my clock. Do you know the clock that if you go back into the history, you can see the my 2-second clock. You can see the videos. That's the whole reason why I'm recording these videos. My empirical evidence, empirical data, empirical proofs of what has happened and what can be shown to be true, so that observation repeatability is a part of the scientific discipline. I didn't learn how to use the clock application. The clock application in the class was the very last thing that the teacher addressed as a lecture in our last lecture, the last day of class, which was he wasn't here on our first day lecture, so they moved our first day lecture to our last day lecture, right? Day 1 lecture got moved to last day lecture. And they just think that it's just okay. Like, we're just gonna force you to have the first day lecture on the last day. And we're just gonna give you an extra lecture. It's just gonna be fine, right? But I digress. He taught that at the end of the day, at the end of the last day. It took him approximately 1 hour to meticulously go through all of the different clock settings. When I prompted ChatGPT to generate the microsecond clock for programming in C++, Visual Studio's gave me an error. I asked ChatGPT, why did Visual Studios give me an error? ChatGPT said, because you're using the internal clock to coordinate your time, but the synchronization of the internal clock could potentially cause conflict. And I said, okay, whatever. And then it kept giving me the error, and I kept saying, well, ChatGPT, the program is still giving me the error whenever I compile the software. When I compile the program, I keep getting this error about this clock. It's like the library, or include. ChatGPT actually taught me a little bit about C++. You can include input-output string so that you can output information to the console, and you can take input from the user into the console that the computer can then put into executable code in the actual console, which is the things that we were learning. So we can do like hello world, and it can teach us how to put hello world, hey, what is your name? And you put your name in. Those are the things that I learned from ChatGPT, not from my instructor. But there's an include clock. I don't know what it's called, but it's an include clock. And there's different types of include clocks that will allow you to pull clock information from the computer system and the emulator. And ChatGPT was explaining that stuff, and I'm like, okay, I don't get it. I ran the program, it works. It works. What the teacher said, or what the teacher instructed me, was that the clock app synchronizes with your internal clock, but it can create an error if you change your clock in your computer to the clock. If you assign the clock in the C++ program and then change your internal clock, it'll create a compatibility error. You have to boot the product. So that was the error message that I was getting from Visual Studios. As long as you don't do that or you don't engage in that behavior, then your clock is fine. But there's a way to synchronize your clock with a more internal system clock, right? Because if it's big clock and the internal clock are not the same. The internal clock is more stable, but it requires a higher level of administrative permission to use versus the Surface desktop clock feed. And that's what synchronization was. It took the teacher about an hour to explain that, but it took ChatGPT about 5 minutes to go through that same lecture. So why would I keep engaging in mental masturbation, as I used to call it, pretending like I'm good enough and I'm capable and I can do it if I just try hard enough for school, and waste several $1,000s. Every time I fail at teaching myself how to program in a school setting, I'm going to waste thousands of dollars. I'm going to give this institution money to not provide me with a service. Why would I do that if I can just pay $20 a month for ChatGPT and have them teach me exactly what it is I'm trying to learn? When the instructors are literally not educating, they're not giving the information I need. This video has been significantly longer than it's supposed to, so I'm gonna just leave it here so I have to keep ranting and raving. I need to get ready for class. I changed my degree program from game development to creative writing, so now I'm going to hop back on that. Well, I'm gonna get back into creative writing. I already have my book together already. I probably have it on the screen. I'm not gonna get it, but I've already, it's whatever. It's on my other channel, on my 2 cent comments. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully within the next 3 days, I'm gonna run again. I feel pretty strong. This leg is significantly, I don't know if it's, this leg is definitely harder than this leg. But yeah, I feel much better. That's what I was gonna say. The problem that I have in my runs is the lactic acid going through my body is causing physical body is overheating. So my heart is overheating, my lungs is overheating, and I'm old. And that pain, pushing through that pain in my age was difficult. And that's the reason why you hear me, sometimes you hear me turn up, not because I'm actually sad or I'm doing something emotional, it's because there's only three main reasons why humans should be running. You're either playing as like a child, you're trying to chase dinner so that you can eat, or you're running from something so that you won't come here. If I'm pushing myself harder than I need to, then I'm probably trying to run from something that's trying to eat me. And there's another level of, there's another mental state that can be activated when you're in high levels of stress and anxiety that will allow you to override your body's normal natural functions. The problem is that continuously overriding my normal natural functions pushes me beyond my physical limitations, and that will cause me to die, right? So the counter for that is my body is like, here's some pain so you can stop. Whatever it is that you're doing, you need to stop right now, because if you don't, we're going to die. But the condition that the body creates to make sure that you won't die is significantly lower than the actual condition of death itself. And what I mean by that is, in the Army, you learn that the levels of endurance that you have above what you believe you have are so much higher than what you have that you can ignore that. You can ignore it. Like, it takes, so that's the reason why a lot of soldiers wind up with permanent injuries. Because you teach people how to push beyond their own physical limitations. But the Army doesn't teach you to push beyond your own limitations with control. They teach you to push beyond your own limitations without control, because if you're being shot at and you need to run harder and faster and longer with equipment carrying your buddy and shooting back at your enemy, you have to do that because you're going to die, right? So we're trained to be able to do that. What I'm doing at my age is just being stupid. I'm legitimately just being stubborn and dumb and arrogant, and I'm going out there and I'm trying to achieve something that is not really relevant. So my body is pushing against that more, and because I'm consciously aware of it, there's a conscious opposition to my physical exertion. That's the reason why I say influence over force. Because I have to mentally force myself to do something that I know that I'm able to do, but I shouldn't be doing, even though I'm willing to do it. And that's where that relationship comes in. And if I can condition right, then I can achieve the goal of the 40K to 100K at the beginning of each year. And that's it. And it's applied physically. I'm not going to go pray to Jesus to help me or give me the strength. I'm going to everything that I said, repeat every 3 days until I fail at achieving a 40K run. Because no matter what you do, did it. And what you're doing has to carry more weight in your life than what you're trying to do. Because you did it. Even if you try to